Pacific Records in Hollywood. And Jim took us under his wing. He became our manager right away and let us record on the tape machines after all the sessions were over. It didn't take very long to figure out that three guys with an acoustic 12-string guitar didn't sound anything like the Beatles. And we loved the Beatles. We wanted to sound like that. So we needed a drummer and a bass player. We saw this guy walk in front of the Troubadour with just like two of the Rolling Stones. We said, him, let's get him. We got Michael Clark to come over and said, you know how to play the drums? He said, well, I play little congas, man. Good enough. So we got him some cardboard boxes, and we taped a tambourine on top and got him some drumsticks, and he learned how to play drums on that. And then we acquired this $35 bass. We got Chris Hillman to come over from Westwood. He was an ace mandolin picker, and we gave him the bass and said, "We'll figure this out." And he did, by the way. So we had a drummer and a bass player. But we didn't have any decent instruments. We had a cardboard box, and $35 bass, and an acoustic 12-string guitar. So we went to see the movie A Hard Day's Night and copied down what the Beatles were playing. Okay, Ringo Starr had Ludwig drums. And Paul McCartney had a Hofner bass. And John Lennon had a Rickenbacker guitar. And George Harrison had a Gretsch guitar for the most part. But then George came out again with a Rickenbacker, and it looked like a 6-string from the front, but when he turned it sideways, you could see 6 other tuning pegs sticking out the back. I went, oh, that's an electric 12-string. I got to get one of those. So I traded in my acoustic 12-string, my 5-string banjo, and some cash, and got a Rickenbacker electric 12. So we had some instruments, but we didn't have a name. We were sitting at the Thanksgiving table. Just trying to cook up a name. And somebody said, well, what about the Birdsies? I said, oh, that's too cute. No. I said, well, what about the Byrds? Well, back in 1964, when this was happening, B-I-R-D-S meant girls in England. We didn't want to be the girls, so they said, well, change the spelling. What about B-U-R-D-S? We went, oh. Then we came up with the B-Y-R-D-S, and we had a name, but we didn't have a record deal. So Jim Dixon arranged for us to audition for this agent in Hollywood named Benny Shapiro. We went to Benny's house, and we sang a few songs in his living room, and we didn't know it, but he had a 14-year-old daughter upstairs. She came running down the stairs, Daddy, Daddy, who's that? She thought the Beatles were in her house. So the next day, Miles Davis came over, because it was his agent. And Benny's telling Miles, you know, a funny thing happened. These kids came over to audition, and my daughter flipped out. She thought they were great. And Miles said, well, kids have a way of knowing things like that. So he called up Columbia Records, and he said, you know that rock band you've been looking for? I think I got it for you. And they signed us on his recommendation. But Columbia Records in 1964 was a very conservative label. They had a lot of show tunes, and they had classical music, and they had Doris Day and Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. They didn't have any rock and roll, but they saw like Capitol and RCA making a lot of money on rock and roll, so they thought they ought to get into it, but they were a little scared of it. So the deal we got was for one single, and if we got a hit with a single, then we could go back in the studio and record the rest of the album. So we needed a really strong song, and nobody thought any of our songs were strong. So Jim Dixon, our manager, had overheard a couple of record producers in Hollywood talking about Bob Dylan, saying, gee, it's a shame Bob can't use that great new song he just wrote because somebody was singing out of tune on it. It wasn't Bob. But we got a copy of it sent out from New York to LA. We all sat around on the Orient rug of the World Pacific floor and listened to this 5-minute long demo in 2/4 time, something like that. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. Not sleepy and there's no place that I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning I come by. David Crosby said, I don't like it, man. He said that folky 2/4 time, it's not going to play on the radio. Well, David had a point. Radio was playing a lot of rock and roll, the Beatles and the Stones. So I had an idea of how to fix that song up for radio. got my electric 12-string out. And I've been playing around on it with a little. I thought, what if you put something like that on the front of it and kick it up with a beetle beat? It might come out okay for radio. And it came out like.
Still